Imagine watching a movie where the main character makes this deeply embarrassing, just incredibly painful mistake.
Oh, the absolute worst feeling.
Right. You are sitting there cringing in the dark, but now imagine the theater doors suddenly lock.
Oh, no.
The remote completely disappears, and that agonizing 2-minute scene just loops on the screen for the next, I don't know, 72 hours.
Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare.
Your heart is racing, your muscles are completely tense, and the worst part is, like, you know exactly how the scene ends every single time.
But you still have to watch it.
Exactly. You are forced to watch it. Today, we are diving into a deeply human, profoundly complex cognitive experience. We are exploring the neurology of the autistic thought loop.
It is an incredibly common experience, but man, is it misunderstood. People often judge themselves so harshly for getting stuck in these loops.
They really do.
There is this pervasive assumption that, if you just tried harder or if you had better emotional regulation, you could just snap out of it. And that fundamental misunderstanding is actually doing a lot of damage.
Which is exactly why this deep dive is so vital for you to hear today. We're looking really closely at insights and lived experiences gathered by the editorial team at Hey ASD.
Right, they're a great resource.
They really are. They are an autistic-owned and autistic-led platform, which means everything we're discussing today comes directly from the inside out.
Yeah, it's not just clinical observation from the outside looking in.
Exactly. Our mission today is to help you understand autistic rumination. Not as a personal flaw, definitely not as a sign of a broken brain, but as a very specific, deeply ingrained neurological processing style.
And changing that framing, that is the very first step to actually finding relief.
Right.
When we stop pathologizing the brain and start looking at how it is mechanically designed to operate, the whole picture just shifts entirely.
Let's unpack this right away. There's a quote from an autistic adult in this source material that, well, it just perfectly nails the feeling.
Oh, I think I know the one you mean.
Yeah, they describe it like this. It's like pressing replay on the worst moments of my life and not finding the stop button.
Wow. Yeah, that imagery of the broken stop button is brilliant because it captures the lack of consent in the process.
The lack of consent. I like how you phrase that.
Right, because you aren't choosing to hit replay. And if you've experienced this, you need to know that we aren't just talking about this to help you feel like a little less annoyed in the moment.
Yeah.
Interrupting this phenomenon is a critical health priority.
Because of the physical toll it takes, right?
Absolutely. Think about what happens when your brain constantly replays a distressing event. Your nervous system, it actually cannot distinguish between a threat that is happening right in front of you and a threat you are vividly imagining or remembering.
Oh, wow. So your body just reacts as if it's real.
Exactly. So your body continuously pumps out stress hormones, like cortisol and adrenaline, over days, weeks, or even years. That creates a massive cumulative emotional load.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. It forces the body into a state of chronic stress. For autistic adults, this kind of sustained rumination is heavily linked to severe anxiety, depression, and ultimately a complete systemic crash known as autistic burnout.
So it literally burns through your cognitive resources until there's just nothing left in the tank.
Precisely.
So to really get a handle on this, let's break down the actual anatomy of a thought loop. What separates healthy, normal reflection from this destructive rumination? Because, the line seems kind of blurry.
It can definitely feel blurry in the moment, but the distinction is actually found in the outcome. Think of ordinary reflection as a pathway that actually goes somewhere.
Okay, like how?
Well, say you think about an awkward interaction you had at work, you process it, you realize, okay, next time I'll just email them instead, and the thought resolves.
Right, you move on.
Yeah, you move on. Rumination, on the other hand, is a treadmill. It doesn't move you forward at all. The longer you sit with the thought, the more intense your distress becomes.
When you look at how autistic advocates describe it, they use the word looping.
Yes, looping is the perfect term.
It is this specific phenomenology of watching that reel again and again, fully aware that the ending is never going to change, but being completely paralyzed and unable to switch the channel.
Right.
You could be agonizing over a tiny social misstep from 10 years ago, or trying to figure out if a joke you made yesterday offended someone.
And clinically, we attach this to a concept called perseveration.
Perseverate.
Yes.
Real.
Perseveration is a biological, neurological tendency to maintain your attention on a specific thought, topic, or behavior far beyond what the actual situation calls for.
So it's an inability to let go.
It is an inherent difficulty in shifting cognitive gears when something new is supposed to take over. And here is the really crucial takeaway for everyone listening. Perseveration is a fundamental baseline feature of autistic cognition.
It's not a glitch.
No, it is not a glitch. It is not a disease. It is just how the operating system is built.
I want to make sure we are really separating this from the casual way people talk about their thoughts, though.
Okay, yeah.
Is this just what neurotypical people mean when they say, oh, I'm such an overthinker? Because it sounds way more visceral than that.
It is much more visceral.
It sounds less like casually overthinking what to order for dinner and more like a computer processor maxing out at 100% trying to force quit a corrupted file.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Like, the fan is absolutely screaming, the laptop is burning your legs, the battery is draining rapidly, but the file is just frozen on the screen and you can't click the X.
You're touching on the exact biological mechanism there. The computer isn't trying to destroy itself.
No, it's just stuck.
Right. It is running the program it was commanded to run.
Yeah.
Just with an impossible task.
Yeah.
In the exact same way, the autistic brain isn't doing this to torture you. It is actively attempting to process something that feels unresolved.
So it's trying to help.
Yes, it is deploying its incredible capacity for thoroughness to search for a pattern, an explanation, or, the quote-unquote correct response to what happened.
But the problem is, sometimes life is messy, and a clean, satisfying resolution just doesn't exist.
Right. And because the autistic brain is wired to be exceptionally thorough, it just keeps searching.
It won't give up.
Exactly. Long after a neurotypical brain would have said, well, that was weird, whatever, and dropped it entirely, the perseverative brain is still turning over every single stone looking for the missing puzzle piece.
Okay, but if perseveration is just a biological mechanism for deep, sustained focus, why the massive discrepancy in how it feels?
What do you mean?
Because sometimes that intense autistic focus feels like an absolute superpower, and other times it feels like you are trapped in a prison of your own mind.
Yes. This is where we get into the dual nature of the autistic brain. It is the exact same underlying cognitive mechanism driving both of those experiences.
Wait, really? Both rumination and diving into special interests use the same mental machinery?
They absolutely do.
So when you are 3 hours deep into a Wikipedia rabbit hole about, 18th century clockmaking or deep-sea biology, you are technically looping on a topic.
Yes, you are perseverating.
But the difference is that deep dive generates energy. It generates learning, joy, and a sense of connection. You walk away from a special interest feeling resourced and alive.
Exactly.
But when that exact same intense focus latches onto a past mistake or an argument, it generates nothing but exhaustion. It strips your gears.
Right. The focus itself is completely neutral. It is the content of the focus that dictates the physical and emotional response.
I keep picturing it like a high-powered industrial spotlight.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the spotlight itself is amazing. When you take that massive beam of light and point it at a special interest, it illuminates an entire world brilliantly. You see intricate details and patterns that no one else around you can see.
Beautifully said.
But when you take that exact same blinding spotlight and get it stuck pointing directly into a mirror of your own past mistakes, it just blinds you. The light is doing what it's supposed to do, but the direction is destroying your vision.
The capacity for that level of focus is an undeniable strength. It is only the direction of the beam that causes the suffering. And this creates a very real bidirectional trap with mental health.
How so?
Well, anxiety and depression feed into rumination. When you are feeling low or anxious, your brain naturally scans for threats or past failures, which basically points the spotlight at the mirror.
Oh, I see.
But then, staring into that blinding mirror feeds right back into the anxiety depression. It becomes a self-sustaining closed-loop system.
If you are listening to this and wondering, wait, am I just reflecting deeply or am I stuck in a destructive loop? There is a brilliant, totally straightforward diagnostic question from the HeySD community to ask yourself.
Yes, this is so helpful.
Just pause and ask. After spending time with this thought, do I feel better or worse? It cuts through all the justification and logic.
It really does.
If the loop intensifies your distress instead of resolving it, you're ruminating. The spotlight is in the mirror.
It is such a pragmatic tool. Your brain might try to convince you that thinking about this painful memory is, important work, or that you are figuring it out.
Right. Our brains are tricky like that.
Very tricky. But regardless of how familiar or seemingly vital the content feels, if it leaves you physically and emotionally depleted, it is a destructive loop.
Because this is a deeply ingrained neurological reflex rather than a temporary glitch, standard advice just bounces right off it.
Completely.
So, what dictates the direction of the spotlight? What makes it get stuck on something bad, especially when the brain is desperately searching for a resolution that isn't there?
That's the big question.
When you listen to autistic voices, they spend a massive amount of time talking about something called justice sensitivity, and this seems to be the ultimate trap.
It really is. Anger rumination, specifically driven by justice sensitivity, is arguably the stickiest type of loop for an autistic brain.
Okay, define justice sensitivity for us.
Justice sensitivity is a deep, profound need for fairness, consistency, and clear, predictable rules about how human beings should treat one another.
And we aren't just talking about being a stickler for the rules of a board game, right?
No, not at all. When someone violates those implicit social or moral rules, the emotional response in an autistic person is rarely just mild annoyance. It registers as a profound threat.
The threat.
Yes, it is a reaction to something that feels fundamentally wrong on a baseline moral level. The structure of the world suddenly feels unpredictable and unsafe.
The triggers for this are incredibly relatable, actually. You see loops starting when a clear boundary is crossed and nobody acknowledges it.
Yes, that's a big one.
Or when an autistic person is completely misunderstood and people assume their intentions were malicious when they were actually just being literal.
Exactly.
Or maybe the worst one, being in a situation where rules are applied hypocritically. Like a manager who punishes you for being 5 minutes late but leaves an hour early themselves every day.
Oh, hypocrisy is a massive trigger. And when you combine that intense, visceral emotional reaction to an injustice with the perseverative engine of the autistic brain, you create the perfect storm.
Which just fuels itself.
Right. You go over what made you mad. You analyze exactly how unfair it was. You script and rescript what you should have said in the moment to defend yourself.
We've all been there, having those shower arguments.
Exactly. And because of the brain's thoroughness, every single pass through that mental loop keeps the anger completely fresh. The cortisol just keeps pumping.
The exhaustion of that is staggering. There is another perspective shared in the material that paints such a clear picture. They said, "My body is still, but my mind has run a marathon of what-ifs and regrets. The exhaustion is bone deep."
That isn't a metaphor, you know. The physical exhaustion is literal.
Wait, really?
Yes, your body is metabolizing stress hormones as if you were physically fighting off a threat, even though you were just sitting silently on your couch.
I have to push back on how society handles this, though. Because what does this mean for the listener when well-meaning friends or partners say the classic line, "You just need to let this go"?
Oof, the worst advice.
It happens all the time, but when they say that, they're essentially asking an autistic person to ignore a blaring 120 decibel fire alarm while the house is actively filling with smoke.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
Neurotypical advice treats letting it go as a simple, logical choice. But the loop isn't a choice.
The neurotypical advice actually backfires here. Telling yourself to let go of anger when an injustice has occurred can feel like you are dismissing your own reality.
Oh, that makes sense.
The anger is a valid signal that something genuinely wrong happened. Your brain will fiercely resist releasing that signal until the event is properly acknowledged.
So you can't just force it.
No. If you try to forcefully drop it without processing the injustice, it feels like a violation of your own core values. It feels like you're gaslighting yourself.
Okay, so we are in a bind. We know the fire alarm is blaring. We know we can't just magically let it go because doing so violates that deep sense of justice. But the body is running a marathon and burning out.
The toll is too high.
The physical toll demands a physical response. We need actual tools to help the nervous system cool down. When you look at strategies developed by actually autistic individuals, you see a completely different, highly practical approach.
Yes, and it's so much more effective.
They use a 4-step toolkit that targets the sensory system, not just the intellect. And the first step is simple, but probably brutal in the moment. Notice and name.
It is brutal because you are swimming in the emotion. You have to create observational distance. You literally check in with your physical body. Maybe your chest is tight, your jaw is clenched, or you feel that familiar, dizzying mental spin.
And then what?
When you notice it, you just name it aloud or in your head without judging yourself. You say, "This is rumination," or "My nervous system is looping." You shift your perspective from being a hostage trapped inside the loop to being a scientist observing it from the outside.
Step 2 is grounding. Because rumination is always pulling you into the abstract past or the abstract future, right?
Exactly.
You cannot think your way out of a thinking problem. You have to bring the brain back to the present physical reality. You have to use your sensory system to interrupt the cognitive loop.
This is crucial.
Pushing your feet flat and hard onto the floor to feel the pressure, wrapping yourself in a heavy textured blanket, or, and this is highly recommended, shocking the system by splashing freezing cold water on your wrists or your face.
The cold water trick is fascinating because it triggers the mammalian dive reflex.
What?
The mammalian dive reflex. It physically forces your heart rate to slow down and stimulates the vagus nerve, which tells your brain, we are not in immediate physical danger.
That is incredible.
Movement works similarly, particularly for anger rumination. Anger generates massive physical arousal like adrenaline, and it needs somewhere to go. Pacing, shaking your hands, or taking a walk outside provides an exit route for that physical energy, which allows the cognitive loop to lose some of its fuel.
Then we get to step 3, externalize. You have to get the loop out of the mental echo chamber.
Get it out of your head.
Yeah, when thoughts stay locked inside your head, they just bounce off the walls, accelerating and getting louder. But if you write them down on paper or speak them out loud into a voice memo on your phone, you convert them from abstract internal chaos into concrete data.
And the quality does not matter.
Right, you aren't writing an essay for a grade.
No, you are literally just transferring the data out of your working memory. For justice sensitivity specifically, writing down exactly what felt wrong, why it was unfair, and why it mattered to you can actually satisfy the brain's desperate need for the event to be acknowledged.
Oh, so it stops the alarm.
By documenting it, you give the event recognition.
Yeah.
You validate the fire alarm, which gives it permission to stop blaring. And that leads perfectly into step 4, reframe and self-validate.
Which does not mean forcing yourself to think positive, toxic thoughts like everything happens for a reason.
No, absolutely not.
It means asking yourself, what would I honestly say to a friend who is dealing with this exact same thought? Because let's face it, we are endlessly kinder to our friends than we are to ourselves.
We really are.
Treat yourself like a friend, acknowledge that the feelings are real, and remind yourself that your brain is just doing its thorough, protective job.
It's about self-compassion,
Yeah.
Replacing the judgment with curiosity.
I have to be honest, though, looking at this toolkit, noticing it, splashing cold water on your face, writing an angry note on your phone, part of me looks at that and thinks, okay, but the injustice still happened. The person was still a hypocrite. The mistake was still made. Are we just putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg here? Does this actually cure the looping?
It is essential to be clear here. This is absolutely not a cure. There is no cure for your neurological baseline, and honestly, searching for one will only cause more suffering.
Right.
The goal of this toolkit is not to eliminate perseverative thoughts permanently. This is about nervous system regulation. It is a practiced habit to create space. You are training your body to hit the pause button.
So it gets easier over time.
Yes. Over time, routinely practicing these steps gradually reduces the intensity and the duration of the loops.
Yeah.
But the mechanism of deep focus is permanent.
So it's about management, adapting to your own operating system. And because this is a systemic reality, your environment and external support matter immensely.
Oh, hugely.
If you are already in a loud, bright, high-demand sensory environment, your nervous system has zero bandwidth left to interrupt a thought loop. Reducing ambient sensory load, finding a quiet room, dimming the lights, removing demands, is critical to letting the processor cool down.
You have to give your brain a break.
And you also have to be careful about the kind of professional support you seek. Because standard therapy often completely misses the mark here, doesn't it?
It really does. Standard cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, often asks you to lodging your way out of a cognitive distortion. It asks you to challenge whether your thought is true.
But with justice sensitivity.
Right. For an autistic brain experiencing anger rumination over a real injustice, there is no cognitive distortion. The hypocrisy was real. The boundary violation actually happened.
Right, you aren't making it up.
Exactly. Asking the brain to logic away a true fact feels like clinical gaslighting.
Yeah.
That is why adapted therapies like acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, are so much more effective here.
How is ACT different?
ACT doesn't fight the truth of the thought. It focuses on accepting the presence of the feeling, recognizing it, and finding ways to live alongside it without being consumed by it.
It's validating the reality instead of debating it. That makes so much sense. But even beyond professional therapy, there is something else that stands out as incredibly powerful in the HASD material, and that is the regulating power of autistic peer communities.
Yes, community is vital.
Finding forums, local groups, or online spaces where people just fundamentally understand your operating system. Because when you can look at a group of autistic peers and say, I have been looping on an injustice from 3 weeks ago and I'm exhausted, and they all just nod and say, yeah, we do that too,
Yeah.
that recognition is profoundly healing.
Because you don't have to translate your experience.
Right.
You don't have to justify your neurology or explain why you can't just let it go. Being understood by your peers is its own powerful form of nervous system regulation. It strips away the isolation and the shame that typically make ruminations so much worse.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We've mapped out the mechanics of the thought loop, we've explored the exhausting emotional weight of justice sensitivity, and we've walked through a sensory-based toolkit to help ground your nervous system.
We really have.
But if there's one single thing you take away from this entire deep dive, let it be this. Rumination is not a sign that you are broken.
It is absolutely not a failure of willpower.
No, it is simply a reflection of how deeply, how thoroughly, and how intensely your mind processes the world around you. You are thorough, you care deeply about fairness.
Exactly.
The exact same brain that gets trapped looping on past pain is the very same brain that holds an incredible, beautiful capacity for joy, deep learning, and special interests. It is the same spotlight.
You can build the tools, you can curate your environment to lower the sensory load, and through peer community, you can find the understanding you deserve. You do not have to fight your own neurology alone.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. We've established that your brain's tendency to loop is fundamentally driven by a deep biological need to find truth, fairness, and resolution. It is exhaustively searching for an answer because it cares so deeply about the rules of the world.
Right.
So, what might happen if, the next time you find yourself stuck on a loop, instead of fighting your mind and judging yourself for being stuck, you simply thanked it?
I love that.
What if you took a breath, thanked your brain for working so incredibly hard to protect your values, and then gently invited it to rest? Maybe then, instead of violently mashing that broken stop button in the dark, we can finally learn how to just unplug the machine, let the processor cool down, and let the replay naturally fade to black.